And good Tuesday morning as we check in with you. It's Canceling COVID. Hi, I'm Tanya Riven. So glad to be with you yet again, talking about what's happening in our community, canceling COVID now. Again, it's been 2 years that we are in our second year, bringing you information that we feel like is impacting our community, and certainly trying to make a difference to keep you informed, keep you up to date with what's happening. Tell you, we came off of a wonderful Memorial Day weekend, and we've got great weather, and yet and still we're still dealing with COVID and the impact that it's having in our lives. We know that it has touched every aspect, and all we can do is just keep working through it. A lot of information to share with you yet again today. You're going to continuously hear information from our experts, our community leaders, our state leaders all across the country. Because believe it or not, everything that we're dealing with, from the shortage to baby formula to the high gas prices to even having to mention all of these deadly shootings that are taking place, these mass shootings around the country, we feel are tied into what has been happening over the past 2 years. Of course, I come to you as always, trying to keep you informed. I do ask that you share, let people know that we are here. Thank you to everyone who continuously joins us and does just that. For that, I am grateful. But yet and still, we continue to look for your support. Speaking of support, thank you to none other than Groundwater Solutions, who has always been with us from day one. Groundwater-solutions.org, groundwater-solutions.org, 704-596-0505, 596-0505. And if you're tuning in for the first time, please head over to TanyaRivens.com. You'll get a good idea of the conversations that we have. A lot of people have kind of put COVID on the back burner, but we refuse to do that. I know you're so sick and tired of hearing about it, but we are sick and tired of dealing with it. And the only way we can continuously address it in a positive manner is to continuously bring you valuable information. With that said, I can never do this alone. I always have to bring on our community expert, I call our resident in-house now, our expert in-house, who always continues to support canceling COVID, none other than Dr. Tricia Davis Black. So good morning, Dr. Black. And as always, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Tanya. Good morning, everybody.
So let's just jump right into this. You know, a week ago, Mecklenburg County was at green. We were pretty much just enjoying ourselves with the weather and the outdoor activities. And then fast forward, and all of a sudden we're at moderate. It's like, oh my goodness, what happened? Which we know that the cases have started to spike, but it seems like it happened like really quickly.
It did. It did. You know, I started receiving, before I saw the numbers, I started receiving calls from folks that I know, personal acquaintances, people in the office that I work with, and folks around the state saying I'm positive or I'm having these types of symptoms, and I'm recommending that they go get tested. And so I saw the numbers going up in my personal circle before I saw the numbers going up in the laboratory. And now we see the numbers going up on the news and in other healthcare facilities. So I'm not surprised. You know, we knew that it was coming. We knew that there would be a trickle effect from what was happening in other countries, that it would eventually hit the shores of the United States. And now we're there. So, you know, we're going to do what we have that we know needs to be done. And I'm going to encourage folks to return to a high level of alert so that you and your family stay safe.
So let's talk about that, though, just a minute, because when you say return to what we know needs to be done, what is that? Because so many people are just, and yours, including me, you know, this whole mask thing sometimes, especially when you're hot and aggravated, just don't
And
feel
it
like
doesn't feel good. Yeah.
just don't want to be bothered when I'm hopping out of the car, you know, running an errand and run in and I look around and go, oh, I forgot my mask, but I do keep one in my purse, but I don't always carry it into the store with me.
Right.
So
So
what
I
should we
do
do?
this. This is what
Okay.
I do. I
All right.
always have one on my arm like that. So
Okay.
just whenever, because I don't want to wear it all day. We know that wearing it all day, every day, is not necessarily the best for our health either, you know,
Okay.
because we're breathing in our own toxins. So we
Mhm,
want to not wear the mask as much as possible, but we want to have it with us and available. So whatever
okay.
you have to do, put it in your purse, put it in your pocket, wear it on your arm like I do. And I wake up in the morning when I'm leaving my home, I put it on my arm and I don't take it off until I'm home again that night. And whenever I'm in close proximity with folks, I put my mask on just because I know that that is safe. If I'm working in my office and I'm all alone, I
Mhm,
just have it on my arm. So we have to return to that level of precaution. We have to remember to physically distance, so give the folks in line. If you're waiting at a restaurant or at a gas station, give folks space in front of you. Remember to wash your hands. Hygiene is very important. Don't touch your mouth and your eyes with your hands. Keep, do those are the things that are very important. Also, remember to test. I told Tanya earlier, you guys, before we got on the air, that I am not feeling very well today. So I've tested myself on Sunday and I tested yesterday. I will take a test again because I do understand what incubation means for COVID, where when you start feeling a little sick or you are with someone and they tell you, well, I've tested positive for COVID, there is an incubation period where you may have been in contact with the virus, but it will not show up. So I'm going to I'm going to probably go home in a little while, but I'm going to do the things that we remember doing 2 years ago and a year ago to make sure that we stay safe. And we've said before that we're going to have periods like this for the next, you know, I, I try not to let, I don't want people to panic, but it could be for the next couple of years. It could be for the next 10 years, but we're going to have periods where there are spikes. And we're going to have to go back into our toolbox and pull out those same strategies that kept us safe.
So let's talk about one point that seems to be very confusing for so many people. It's not like COVID has been compared to the flu. But one of the questions that was presented to me was like, what's really odd about this virus? The flu season, which one of the things you had referred to as not a pandemic, but the flu is considered a
Endemic.
endemic. So you can predict when it comes and when we're going to hit these peaks and valleys. The thing about the flu, we know it's coming during when the season starts changing with the weather.
Mhm,
It seems
mhm,
like with COVID, there are no rules, no boundaries. Here we are heading into the season of sunshine and fun in the sun, and
mhm.
it just rears its head again. And I'm like, okay, will we ever get to that point?
I believe we may, and COVID may be an illness that is year round. We
Okay.
don't know. The thing about an endemic is that we know enough about it to be able to predict
Hmm.
and to manage.
Right.
So COVID just has not been here long enough that we are at a place that we can predict. We know how it's transmitted. We know how to keep ourselves alive if we do the things that we are being told to do, but we are not yet at a place where we can predict when the highs and the lows are going to happen. So
Yeah.
what we have to do is be very responsive when we see the highs coming, that we take immediate action. And so we're in this place now that we were at low last week. Now we're at medium.
Yeah.
Now, if we did, what's going to happen if all of us don't get on board and stop the spread? Next week, we're going to be at a high, and
And I
high
don't
for
want that.
COVID does not. It
Wow.
does not look good. It does not feel good, and we lose lives.
And I've had several people when you said that in my circle as well that said, I had COVID. And these are people who have been vaccinated and have
Mhm,
done everything that they have been told to do. But kudos to the point that we know to our leaders and to our experts. You can still get it, but it helps you to survive. And the
mhm,
impact is not as
mhm,
great as it would if you are not vaccinated. So, of course, the county is saying their purpose in making you aware of this. I saw some numbers. I just want to look. Looks like at the Southeast Health Department, they had 249 confirmed cases. That's over at Billingsley Road, and then
mhm,
over on Beatties Ford, 2,845
mhm,
cases that they had logged. But those who are not vaccinated, what the county is encouraging everyone to do, again, what you said, take the precautions, but
mhm,
also get the vaccine and
mhm.
get boosted. And certainly what we don't want to do, we can't do, and we've said this all along, is go back to where we started. And we don't have to
Mhm.
now because you've got options. You've got the pills if you don't
Mhm.
want to take the vaccine, and there's
Mhm.
still the antibody treatment that you can take
Yeah,
with
there's pills, there's IV treatment, and there's the vaccine. And their locations, vaccine numbers have been really low,
Okay.
even though we know that there are still unvaccinated, and there's folks who are vaccinated and who need boosters. But you have sites like ours and other locations around the state that no one shows up. So just remember, these peaks that we experience, we expect the vaccine numbers to start to climb again, just because people want to forget. But it's times like this where God sends reminders that there's COVID is still here. The show, it sends a reminder to folks that it's still here, and hopefully it leads to us helping folks survive.
So let me share this quote by Dr. Anthony Fauci, who said that the coronavirus historically doesn't give lasting immunity. And that's the reason with the common cold coronaviruses, we can get infected maybe a couple times a year. Now, with that said, some people will probably like, my goodness, I'm just going to just deal with it. Just keep dealing with it.
Mhm.
Because, with what he's saying, it and to your point again, it's with us and it's going to be here and it's going to
Mhm.
continue. And I've gotten to the point where if I'm feeling a little funny, I start thinking maybe I've been exposed. And typically for me, it's a headache and just feeling a little different. But I'm so grateful that it hasn't taken me down to the
Right.
point where I'm just wiped out because I
Mhm.
have been vaccinated.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I think it's important to know your body.
Right.
Pay attention. One thing that we know about people of color is it typically takes us much longer to seek medical care
Hmm.
when we are feeling ill, whether it's something minor or whether it's something major. And that leads to the reason we don't survive some of those illnesses that other cultures will typically survive.
Yeah.
So again, it's because we're not mindful. We don't pay attention. And when my back's been hurting for 3 months, and what could that possibly mean? So we must be mindful. We must pay attention and assess our bodies every day. And when we feel that something's out of whack, and for you, it might be a headache. For
Hmm.
me, it might be my sinuses or pressure in my chest. But we should know what those signs are that something's going wrong in this beautiful machine that God created. And then
Right.
when we notice that something is going wrong, take immediate action to address, whether that's going to get a physical, seeing your primary care doctor, whether it's, taking a boost of vitamins. Um,
Yeah.
when we don't respond, things don't, especially with COVID-19, it
Right.
is more than likely not going to go well.
That's true. So, Dr. Black, let's talk about, and again, if you're just joining us, we're talking about Mecklenburg County went from green to moderate within a week, and it's kind of like whiplash, like, boy, that
Mhm.
came out of nowhere. And we don't want to escalate. Real quick, I want to talk about what you're seeing. You touched on it. If you could just mention briefly, the vaccines are down, but anything else that you're touching on, and then I want to move on to the next topic.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about with regard to COVID-19. Lots of us we don't want to talk about it anymore. I
Mhm.
want to hit on the aftermath. We
Right.
talked about mental health issues and things like that. Well, what we're finding is that COVID-19 in any kind of pandemic or there's a term called mass formation. And when the whole world or the whole community has to get on the same page, there's
Hmm.
something that happens after that, and it's related to isolation and loneliness. And
Hmm.
so there's a whole set of our population that in response to COVID, they are isolated not only in their homes but in their relationships, where
Hmm.
there's a disconnection from the social and the human bonds that we need. And so that's why we're seeing the escalation in mental health issues. That's why we're seeing some of those violent acts that you talked about earlier, Tanya. It's
Yeah.
because people are disconnected. So I just want to encourage everybody who's listening to reconnect with folks that might be still in their homes. Folks aren't necessarily coming out to go to work. There are some who are participating in the beautiful sunshine, but there's folks who are still in this COVID mentality when we were on lockdown, and they do not want to return to any type of normalcy. That means coming out of the house and reconnecting with people. And so just be mindful. Be
Well,
mindful.
I appreciate that comment and your own point with a conversation that I was having with my husband yesterday, and we're talking about a lot of conversation around gun control and the violence and the mass shootings. And he said, what's really missing from this conversation, which should be first and foremost, is the mental health aspect.
Mhm.
And whether anyone's being diagnosed, some of the issues are a given, and I know it's a divisive issue. It shouldn't be. And
Mhm.
I can say on this platform, the whole background check, that's a no brainer. I don't understand why that would be an issue with anyone. But the whole mental health, and I think, and you could probably vouch for this or verify, at some point in our country, the focus on addressing mental health, there was a shift. He seemed to think it was during the 80s and 90s where there was a focus, and then there was a shift to where it wasn't as much attention paid to assisting people when it comes to mental health. And of course, we can't say in our community because we're just getting our community to start talking about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
overall, as a country, do you feel like there was a point where there was more focus and we got away from it, and now we should shift back to it? Obviously, I know you agree we should
Yeah.
focus more on it, but do you think at some point there was more control and more ways
Well,
to
well,
address?
well, I think that there was a focus on in the elite populations,
Okay,
the folks with more means, that it
mm,
was something that they did, as opposed to an awareness that we all have mental health. You know,
right,
we all have a brain, and mental health impacts everyone. So I don't know if there has ever been a pervasive awareness and an understanding of that reality. I think those with the means, it became kind of trendy to see your therapist or your
yeah,
analyst or whatever you called it. And those without the means were placed in institutions.
yeah,
And once they were placed, they stayed there. And what I've seen is with mental health reform, we know that institutional living is not what's best for people and for communities. And then there was a shift in bringing those folks out of the institutions back
right,
into the community. But so I think there have been movements around mental health as
right,
opposed to just an open dialogue about how, as a basic tenet of our whole healthcare, do we include mental health and mental wellness. So I think this is a new conversation. I think is a necessary conversation. I think every issue and problem in our society is tied and connected somewhere to mental health. And until we make that reality and make that connection, because we could talk about guns all day, but guns don't kill people. People kill people. And it's people who are not well, who are sick, who are hurting, who are traumatized, who are broken, who are lonely. And if we can deal with that, then we won't see these mass shootings. We won't see the suicides that are just piling up every day. I'm hearing about it, and
yeah.
it's heartbreaking.
Just a total disregard for life and for humanity. And so, to your point, certainly we would see, I would agree, a decrease in the
Mhm.
violence and all the mass shootings. And again, I feel like a
In
lot
in
of this is
every problem in society, if we can
right.
address mental health, we will see every problem improve.
Well, I know this is a passion for you, and that's your expertise is working with mental health and mental wellness. As we start to wrap things up, give us an update on where you are with
Yeah.
getting the certification so people can use groundwater
Yeah.
solutions.
Yeah, so we are still waiting.
Okay.
We believe that within the next week or two, we were told 3 to 5 weeks from our April site visit. So just
Mhm.
keep us lifted in your prayers, and we're waiting any moment to receive that certification. We are receiving the invitations for the different trainings and the different pieces that we have to fill in the community, but we have not gotten that certification yet. So I will keep you all informed as we move forward. In the meantime, remember with this peak coming with COVID-19, do get tested. We are still doing drive up testing at our main office, as well as coming out to events and doing concierge testing. If you or someone you love believe that you've been impacted or you have any symptoms, you can just call our office at 704 596 0505.
Great, great stuff, Dr. Tracia Black. I sir appreciate you as always taking the time to talk with us and enlightening us and being our expert to keep us focused on what's happening. And we are praying. Let's not
Thank
move from
you.
out of it, folks. We've got a whole lot of stuff
Yeah,
happening that we want to get out and enjoy one another. And we're also praying that
absolutely.
you feel better, Dr.
Yeah.
Black. So again, thank you for taking the time to talk
Thank
with us.
you. All right.
Absolutely. It's always a joy to have Dr. Black on groundwater-solutions.org, 704-596-0505, 704-596-0505. Available for testing on site, concierge testing, you name it, your source, your resource to get you real answers. That's what we do, real talk, real answers, real solutions. And along those lines, keep in mind as you watch this, please share and indicate that this is also a part of Atrium Health, a COVID vaccine ambassador. I work with them on doing this, helping to get the word out, and would love for you to share so that they know I am working at Atrium Health. COVID vaccine ambassador, that's the hashtag. Now, Dr. Black kind of talked about the mental wellness aspect, and we talked about the mass shootings. So I've got a special treat today. It's going to air on Saturday, the full interview. So please join in. But my dear friend who's in Buffalo, she's my colleague and she's a radio personality. Started here she didn't start here in Charlotte, but we used to work together at one of the radio stations here in the city. And her name is Yasmine Young. She's in Buffalo, been there for 7 years. And we've got a conversation. We had a conversation about how we as a community can support, what's the pulse like in the community, and also what you can do on your part to help as we continue to focus on our brothers and sisters, not just in Buffalo, but in Uvalde, Texas, dealing with these mass shootings. They're not going away. And I know the news cycle now, every day is a focus on shootings. That's the hot spot. That's the top story because people want to know. If it wasn't for the mass shootings, would it be the lead story every day? Possibly not. But the focus is also to keep you informed and also to put some pressure on the lawmakers that we need action, we need change. And we don't want to forget those. These are real people, real lives that have been lost. And so we don't want to lose this in the process. So here are a couple of comments from Yasmine Young, who is with a station in Buffalo. She's been on air there. And I am so grateful again for her taking the time to talk with us. So here's Yasmine Young. I'm talking to a very talented and lovely individual that I've known for quite some time. She's in the Buffalo area, and we want to keep this conversation going about what has happened to our brothers and sisters in Buffalo concerning the mass shooting that happened at Tops. None other than Yasmine Young joining me to talk about how we can continue to uplift and support. And Yasmine, I couldn't think of anyone better to have this conversation with because you've been in that area now for 7 years. You've got family. Let's first start by talking about Buffalo and the community that's been impacted by this mass shooting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to send condolences out to anyone, extended family, close family of the 10 people that lost their lives. It was just a really tragic and horrific situation that happened in our community. A lot of folks there, I know that there's a Charlotte Buffalo connection, that a lot of folks from Charlotte either lived in Buffalo, grew up there, have family there, and they may know, but a lot of other people don't know that Buffalo is a very segregated city, and it's got a very strong Black population. I believe it's in the 45 to 47% African American, which a lot of people kind of surprises them because for some reason, because it's cold, maybe they think that there's not a lot of African American people there, but within the city, there really is.
That's surprising to me, yes. That's shocking,
okay,
actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that. But when you're talking about the suburbs and surrounding areas, overall it drops it down significantly because the market itself, if we're talking about television or radio markets, is 12% African American. So the highest concentration is within the city of Buffalo as well as Niagara Falls. But yeah, there's a lot of Black people there. Buffalo has a rich history of, the Underground Railroad and being one of the last stops or the last stop for slaves, runaway slaves, people looking for freedom to get to Canada.
Yeah.
So it's got a really rich African American history, and a lot of those folks were people that migrated from the South and ended up just staying in Buffalo. And one of the things about Buffalo is it's a very segregated city. So the East Side, basically East Side is code for Black people. So anytime you hear in the news cycle East Side, that's what that means. That's where the majority of African Americans in the city live. Not to say they don't live on the West Side, North or South, but that is where the majority live.
So let's talk about it looks like now the majority of the funerals have been held, and I know the community is going to take some time to even start to recover. But what's the pulse of the community now?
I think a lot of people are where they've been. And it's kind of that frustration that there's money being pumped into Buffalo, but then we still have poverty, we still have gun violence, we still have these things that plague us, even though there's, millions, billions of dollars being pumped in over years, but they're going to different places. They're not going predominantly to where African American people live, and it's kind of a slow going. And when you look at it from that perspective and you see Buffalo is the second biggest city in New York State behind obviously New York City. Right. And so there should be resources that are coming to the African American population. I think people are just kind of at the point where they've been fed up and they're just getting more and more fed up and trying to figure out what are we going to do versus waiting on help and, aid and assistance from elsewhere.
Again, that's Yasmine Young, WBLK Radio in Buffalo, New York. Yasmine Young, WBLK Radio in Buffalo, New York, giving you some insight and an idea of what's happening in the community and dropping some real jewels as well. So if you tune in on Saturday, you can get the complete interview at praisecharlotte.com. Again, that's at praisecharlotte.com, or join me on air on Saturday beginning at 10 a.m. It's Sounds of Inspiration. Well, my friends, it's time for me to move out of the way. I do invite you, if you have a suggestion or would like for us to cover a topic, that's for us to cover a topic, you can email me always, rivenstanya@gmail.com, rivenstanya@gmail.com. We welcome your feedback and certainly solicit your input as well as your comments. As always, life's challenges make you better, not bitter. I'm Tanya Rivens. Thank you so much for joining us as we continue to share information, provide real information, real resources, and real solutions as we continue to bring you Canceling COVID. There's a ministry, also a group of ministries and others. It's Village Heartbeat that's also sharing information on 102.5 The Block, and that's not correct. It is correct. 102.5 The Block, bringing you information to try to outreach to another population about how important it is to be informed. And they're hosting events called Village Talk. We're going to get someone scheduled on to talk about that as well. So again, COVID is still with us. It's not going anywhere, and we're not going anywhere either. We're going to keep talking about it. So thanks for joining me, everyone. Get out and enjoy this wonderful weather. And as always, thanks for supporting Canceling COVID. Have a great day, everyone. And thanks for tuning in.